Oh yeah, you're watching the Green Dream Project. Jim here, and we're gonna head on location. This is a very exciting video because we are gonna talk about garden plans. Let's join Jessica over at Site Zero, Ground Zero. There she is. All right, I think we alluded to this in a previous video, but we're going to talk about our garden plans. Now we have a main garden plan set for the south side of the trailers, but that one is going to be huge, and it's going to take a while to set up the infrastructure for that. But we want to get things growing right away, so we decided on a smaller plot that we have on the north side of the trailers. We're going to talk about all the reasons why we're choosing that. You know, we got some thoughts and ideas onto this, but if you listening to this, if gardeners out there, permaculturists, if any of you have any additional suggestions or think like, oh, hey, wait, maybe you want to think about this, let us know.
Let us know now.
Please, before we start. This is the general area we're going to have it right out there. This is the north side from the trailers. We're going to talk about three main aspects of starting a garden, which number one is location. Number two is, what's number two?
Well, the size. How big is the garden?
Size. And number three?
And the shape or orientation.
Orientation is definitely something you got to consider when placing any kind of thing on a homestead. Building, animal location, orientation.
Let's talk about some of the factors that we have to consider when deciding those things in placing our garden. And one really important one is the sun. These plants need sun.
Sun, right? Obviously, you got to take into consideration sun angles, the way the sun moves at different times of the year.
Shadows that might fall on an area.
Yep.
And how much shade.
Exactly. And right now, as we plan this garden, it will have full sun. It's far enough away from the trailers on the north side where even in the winter time, those northern shadows aren't going to come over and affect it.
And there's no trees or anything in the vicinity.
Yeah, trees? Not around here. But there will be items coming up in the future, and that we got to plan for as well. There might be buildings popping up on the west hand side, but that's not really on the west side. But that's not really too big of an issue over here, because if we can block out some of that western side sun from the garden, that would actually be beneficial probably to us, especially in the summer.
Yeah, that's something that we need to keep in mind, is how much sun the plants might be getting at different times of the day, because the western sun is going to be hotter. That's going to be the hottest point of the day here, and in midsummer plants might appreciate some shade in the afternoon.
A little bit of stress relief. Sun can be very stressful out here. Next, of course, is water and location to water. Out here, it's actually almost one of the furthest spots from where we have water tanks available, but we will be building other water catchment close by. And so hopefully we can come up with a system that we can actually kind of irrigate from that spot. Water's definitely gonna be a concern. Probably not for most people, but for us, especially since everything is from scratch. You know, we don't have any kind of systems in place, and you probably don't want to be hand watering all day.
Oh no! In addition to considering the distance from our water source, considering the contours of the land and the slope is going to affect water drainage to where the water runs, where it collects.
We've been here through the monsoon season, and we don't see a whole lot of water runoff. Most of it stays pretty much where it's at. It will pool up in some areas, especially in areas where there's no grass. But this should be a pretty good spot.
Let's talk about a big consideration here for us anyway, is wind. It's something that we deal with a lot. Strong winds, like right now.
If you could tell, the wind is something we have to deal with. Yeah. And in a desert situation, not only is sun an issue for for drying things out. Wind can also be a factor for drying things out.
Force of the wind can cause damage to plants, but yeah, it can also dry it out.
So these are definitely a couple of things we gotta take into consideration. And right now there are no wind blocks in this area, and there's not a whole lot we can do about that. There is some things. Most likely we're gonna probably be using a sunken bed technique. So this will go into the earth slightly, and it should give it a little bit of wind protection. Also, it should allow for more water penetration. When it does rain, water will kind of get in there, soak into the ground. We get prevalent winds mainly coming from the west and the south. There is a very good chance that the location of this garden, the placement of the trailers, possibly the awning, once all that's in place, might give us a little protection, wind protection. You got to take into consideration the Coriolis effect, and I think we might be farther enough away before those winds straighten out and keep flowing again.
And then, of course, on the west, we're going to be building structures there too that might create a buffer.
So definitely, if you're in an arid climate, especially if you're in the high desert, definitely take into consideration wind. The shape of this garden is specifically important because we've kind of come up with a shape that we're thinking will help with wildlife. Now we'll probably end up fencing this thing, maybe about a good 5 to 6 foot fence, but it's gonna be narrow, and it's gonna be in an L shape. I'd show you the markers we had laid out, but the markers aren't very good. We just kind of went out with a wheel and we roughed it out. It's if you took a look at the angles, it would make you mad. It would drive a person insane. The geometry used for this only comes from the ancient ones that are deep asleep in Nyarlathotep, in R'lyeh. Only Cthulhu would understand the geometry we laid out here. Sorry. So anyway, it's kind of like an L shape. And it's narrow. We're giving it about a 6 foot width going along that L shape. 3 feet for the garden bed, 3 feet for a walking path. And we're hoping that will discourage deer from jumping over the fence into the garden, as in a deer might not want to consider jumping over into such a narrow space.
So size is an important consideration. Like we said, we have larger gardens planned for the future, but right now we want something smaller. We figure it's usually better to start off smaller anyway. So start off with a smaller garden, something manageable.
When we were talking to all those natural building experts, I mean, what do they say? Start small, start manageable. And the same thing, I think any gardener that's been doing it for years would probably tell you, start with something small. Right now, we haven't grown anything out here.
We have to build up our infrastructure for catching water.
And so getting a small starter garden will just really help us get some of that experience, some of that knowledge of growing out here before starting those larger tasks.
And finally, we need to consider our zones and the placement of our garden in relationship to other things, and as far as what is convenient for us, what's efficient for us, so that we're not wasting time and energy.
So we did a video talking about permaculture zones and we broke that down. I'll leave a link to that right there.
But briefly, there's 5 zones in a permaculture design, and your zone 1 is usually closest to your home, and it's where you're spending the most time outside your home. And zone 5 would be where you're spending the least amount of time.
Unless you're including zone 0. Some people include a zone 0. But yeah, zone 1 is going to be your daily trips. You're going to be there every day. And that's exactly what we're thinking about where this garden will be. It'll be in our zone 1. It really can be a zone 1 from the trailer, or when we build our future house site, which is right over there somewhere. All right, well, thanks a lot for joining us, everyone, as we talk about our first garden. That should get put up pretty soon. probably as soon as I'm done with this massive project. Enjoyed a little talk about future garden plans? Give us a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do. We'd love to see you around. Leave a comment down below. Let us know what you think about our plans. Any suggestions, concerns? Share this with a friend or two, because they love gardening and they love permaculture.
And you can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
That's right. All right, thanks for joining us. And we're gonna cut out here and we're gonna give you a little view of the garden, but we'll catch you in the next video, everyone. Bye. See, we planted orange flags around where the garden's going. Look with caution. As I said, trying to understand this layout will drive you mad.